Hey, what's up everyone, it's Goose, and today my room is very messy. Today we're going to be comparing the Friedman amps in the Quad Cortex and the Fractal FM9. Specifically, we'll be diving into the BE models with the HBE setting enabled as well as the C45 switch. Friedman's HBE mode is basically adding another gain stage onto the BE channel. And for a lot of folks, this actually ends up stuffing up the mids a little bit, which is a lot less desirable than the more open BE channel. And that's where that C45 switch comes in. It changes the frequency around to not be quite as mid-focused. And actually, in my opinion, this combination is really special, and that's why I wanted to do this comparison. So we're going to compare how these settings are modeled between the Fractal and the neural Quad Cortex and see what differences they might have. Before we move on, if you like nerding out about guitar gear for high gain, please consider hitting like and subscribe. All right, starting with the setup, we're gonna go with my FGN. This is a Seymour Duncan Pegasus in the bridge. And interestingly, this actually does sound pretty close to my illuminators that I have in my other guitars. Both modelers will be running only a drive block, an amp block, and an IR block. The drive block on both models will be the Boss SD1, and that will only be used for the high gain tones with these settings that you see on the screen right here. The amp block settings will also be the same between the two units, with some exceptions. The Quad Cortex actually doesn't have the thumb knob modeled, so we'll be leaving the Fractal's depth knob, which is what the thumb knob is the depth knob. We'll be leaving the depth knob at the default 5.25. The Quad Cortex also has a voice switch, which I left on because I just think it sounds closer to the FM9's model for this comparison. The IR block is running a York Audio IR based on a Bogner 412 with V30s, mic'd with a 57 and 121. This will be mix 3 from that IR set. Let's start with some mid-gain tones. To start, we'll strum some single open notes and then some simple chords. Then we'll have some mid-gain riffs and then the volume test at the end where we basically switch down the volume of the guitar itself to see how the model reacts to turning down the volume knob on your guitar. And with that out of the way, let's go. My thoughts, the Fractal model is definitely a little bit tighter. The Quad Cortex model does have a slight bit more gain, however. I like the snappiness of the Fractal, but I actually do think the Quad Cortex version has a little bit more dynamics. As with most Quad Cortex models, it feels like there's just kind of a lower mid emphasis, which may be where that perceived dynamic is coming from. The trade-off is that when I'm just strumming chords, I feel like the higher notes in those chords just didn't come as clearly on the Quad Cortex as it did on the Fractal. However, both do the volume test pretty equally. However, I don't feel like either do it completely that well. If I'm honest, they aren't the best that I've heard. All right, let's move on to the high gain. Again, this will be with the overdrive on, and let's go. All right, so my thoughts are that the Fractal is a bit more well kept together. It's once again a bit tighter, and with more compression, it doesn't start kind of flubbing out, which is kind of what you would expect when you add an overdrive like the SD1 in front, which takes out a lot of the bass. However, I think with the Quad Cortex, there's this kind of cool fuzziness that I think maybe stoner or sludge kind of players will like a little bit better. However, with the faster riffs, the Fractal definitely wins just because it's a little bit tighter. Also, I want to note that between these two models, the Friedman HBE mode, despite having as much gain as it does, it sounds so clear with the note separation. On the riff with the arpeggiated high notes, it was actually really clear, and I was very surprised because other amp models that I've tried with that same riff just don't come across quite as clear. And I think Fractal and Neural should both be very much applauded for kind of capturing that with the Friedman model. Really, the biggest difference between these two will be the lower mids. There's just woofiness in the Quad Cortex model that you find in actually most of the Quad Cortex models. And I think that's to add like a sense of dynamics to it. It will be just harder to dial in for a tighter tone. But that also means it'll be more punchy, even if it's not as clear in the high end. But however, in this case, actually with this amp in particular, most of the settings are at noon. So if you just wanted to compensate a little bit, I think you could do a pretty good job trying to get them to match even further, trying to get the Neural a little bit tighter, or trying to get the Fractal a little bit more dynamic. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are down below. Did you like the Neural or the Fractal better? And when I finished this comparison, I realized, oh, the Helix also has an HBE mode on their Friedman model. So in the future, you can look forward to me comparing the Line 6 model with the Neural and the Fractal. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. Hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope you all had a great year with guitar gear. This will probably be my last video of the year, and I thank all of you for watching and following my content. There will definitely be more to come, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later.